If stories like this open your eyes to the reality of romance scams, please hit that like button and subscribe. What I'm about to share could save you or someone you love from making the same devastating mistakes I did. My name is David Morrison, and I'm 73 years old. I'm recording this from a one-bedroom apartment in Tucson, Arizona, a far cry from the four-bedroom ranch house I owned free and clear just 3 years ago. I'm sharing this story not because I'm proud of it, but because I need you to understand how a successful, educated man, a former high school principal, for God's sake, can lose absolutely everything to a scam so elaborate, so emotionally devastating, that even now I sometimes wake up at 3 in the morning wondering if parts of it were real. This isn't just about money, though I lost nearly $400,000. This is about how someone can systematically dismantle your sense of reality, your trust in your own judgment, and your will to protect yourself. This is about how loneliness doesn't just make you vulnerable, it makes you complicit in your own destruction. Let me take you back to where this started, because the beginning never looks like a scam. It looks like hope. I lost my wife Catherine to ovarian cancer in 2019. We'd been married 41 years. 41 years of inside jokes and shared silences and knowing exactly how the other person took their coffee. When she died, she took half of who I was with her. Our kids, Sarah and Thomas, they tried their best. They called regularly, visited when they could, but they had their own lives, their own families. Sarah's in Denver with 3 teenagers. Thomas is in Boston, working 80-hour weeks at his law firm. They loved me, but they couldn't fill the Catherine-shaped hole in my life. For 2 years after she died, I went through the motions. I'd wake up, make breakfast for one, read the newspaper, tend the garden Catherine had loved, watch Jeopardy reruns, and go to bed. Repeat. I volunteered at the library on Tuesdays. I had coffee with my neighbor Frank on Thursdays. It was a life, technically. But it wasn't living. The isolation during COVID made everything worse. Suddenly even those small interactions were gone. Just me, alone in that house, surrounded by 41 years of memories and no future to look forward to. I'd talk to Catherine's picture sometimes, ask her what I was supposed to do with all these years I had left. She never answered, of course. The silence in that house was so heavy I could barely breathe. I joined Facebook in late 2020, mainly to see pictures of my grandkids. I'd scroll through sometimes late at night when the loneliness got too heavy, when the idea of another day exactly like the last one made me want to scream. That's when the message came. Her name was Niren. The profile showed a woman in her early 50s, beautiful in an understated way, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Hello David," the message read. "I hope this message finds you in good health and happiness. I came across your profile and was touched by the photo of you and your late wife at the Grand Canyon. I lost my husband 5 years ago, and I know that particular sadness in the eyes. Forgive me for being forward, but I felt moved to reach out. Sometimes we survivors need to remind each other that life still holds beauty. Warm regards, Niren." I must have read that message 20 times. She'd looked at my profile carefully enough to see that photo, to understand what it meant. She knew what loss felt like. And she'd reached out, not asking for anything, just offering, what? Understanding? Connection? The idea that someone else out there knew this specific kind of loneliness? I wrote back. Just a simple thank you, an acknowledgement of our shared experience. She responded within an hour, and we began talking. At first, it was just messages, comparing our experiences of loss, sharing memories of our spouses, talking about how strange it felt to be alone after decades of partnership. She lived in Bangkok, she told me, worked as an English teacher at a private school. Her husband had died in a motorcycle accident, leaving her to raise their daughter alone. Ploy is 17 now, she told me in one of our early conversations. She is applying to universities. Smart girl, like her father. But I worry about the cost. International schools here are so expensive, and without my husband's income, it is difficult. The mention of her daughter made it all feel more real, more legitimate. This wasn't some profile with stock photos and vague details. This was a woman with a real life, real struggles, real connections. We started video calling after about 2 weeks, and the first time I saw her face on my screen, heard her voice with its slight accent, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: anticipation. Not just for the call, but for my day. Suddenly I had something to look forward to. Nyren was everything Catherine hadn't been, and I don't mean that as a criticism of my late wife. Catherine had been practical, organized, no nonsense. Nyren was poetic, emotional, openly affectionate in a way that made my heart race like I was 25 again. She'd tell me I had a beautiful soul. She'd say that meeting me felt like destiny, like her late husband had sent me to her so she wouldn't be alone anymore. "David, I know this is fast," she said one night, about a month into our daily calls. "But I feel something for you I thought I would never feel again." Is that crazy? At our age, to feel like a teenager with a crush? It wasn't crazy. It was exactly what I needed to hear. "I feel it too," I admitted, and saying those words out loud felt like permission to hope again, to imagine a future that didn't look like an endless string of solitary dinners and empty beds. We talked about visiting each other. She was nervous about coming to America, visa issues, she said, and the expense of the flight. "But you could come here," she suggested. "Come to Bangkok. Let me show you my city, my life. Let me cook for you and walk with you and..." "David, I want to see if this feeling is as real in person as it is on this screen." I booked the flight that same week. Business class to Bangkok, 3 weeks in May. I told Sarah and Thomas the first was taking a trip to Thailand, meeting a friend. Sarah's voice got that careful, worried tone she used when she thought I was making a mistake. "Dad, how well do you know this woman? Have you, verified she's real? There are so many scams targeting older people." "She's not a scam, Sarah," I cut her off, more sharply than I intended. "I've been talking to her for 3 months. I've seen her face, heard her voice, learned about her life. I'm 70 years old, not senile. I think I can tell the difference between a real person and a scammer. But could I? That's the question I torture myself with now. When did I stop being able to tell the difference? Or was I lying to myself from the beginning, so desperate for connection that I ignored every single warning sign that should have sent me running? The flight to Bangkok was the longest 17 hours of my life. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on the movies or the book I'd brought. I just kept checking my phone, reading through our old messages, looking at her pictures. At 70 years old, I felt like I was flying toward my second chance at happiness. The wedding ring I'd worn for 41 years was in my carry-on bag. I'd taken it off 2 days before, feeling both guilty and liberated. Nyren met me at the airport. She was shorter than I'd expected, more delicate, but when she hugged me it felt exactly right. "David," she whispered against my chest. "You're really here. You're really real." "So are you," I said, and in that moment, I believed it completely. She took me to my hotel, a nice place in the Sukhumvit area, and insisted I rest after the long flight. "Tonight," she promised, "I will cook for you at my apartment. You will meet Ploy. We will be like a family." The way she said family made my chest tight with an emotion I couldn't quite name. That evening, she picked me up in a taxi and we drove to her apartment. It was modest but clean, a 2-bedroom unit in a slightly run-down building. Ploy was there when we arrived, a beautiful teenager who looked so much like her mother, shy and polite, her English excellent with a British accent from her international school education. "It's so nice to meet you, Mr. Morrison," she said, shaking my hand formally. "My mother has told me so much about you." We had dinner together. Nyren had cooked traditional Thai dishes, and the 3 of us sat around her small table like we'd done this 100 times before. Ploy talked about her university applications, her dream of studying medicine. Nyren watched both of us with tears in her eyes. "This is what I have been missing," she said quietly. "This feeling of family. Of not being alone with all the responsibility. David, you don't know what it means to me, having you here." After dinner, Ploy excused herself to do homework, and Nyren and I sat on her small balcony overlooking the Bangkok streets. She took my hand, and when I looked at her in the soft light, I saw my future. I saw dinners like this, saw helping Ploy with her tuition, saw Niren and me growing old together, finally not alone. I have something difficult to tell you, Niren said, her voice trembling. I have been trying to figure out how to say this, but I think I must just be honest. My heart stopped. Was she about to tell me this was a mistake? That the reality of me didn't match what she'd imagined? Ploy's university fees, she continued. The application deadline is in 2 weeks, and David, I don't have enough. The deposit alone is $40,000. I've been saving for years, but with my husband gone, with just my teacher salary. She started crying, real tears streaming down her face. I'm going to have to tell her she can't go. That all her hard work, all her dreams, they don't matter because I failed her. I didn't even hesitate. I'll help, I said immediately. I'll cover the deposit. Ploy deserves this chance. Niren looked at me with such gratitude, such relief, that I felt like a hero. David, I cannot ask that of you. It's too much. You're not asking. I'm offering. I have the money, Niren. Let me do this. Let me be part of your family. She threw her arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. You are an angel. A blessing. I don't know how I will ever repay you. You don't need to repay me, I said, meaning it completely. This is what people do for each other. This is what family does. I wired the money the next day. $40,000 from the savings account Catherine and I had built over decades. But it felt right. It felt like using that money for something meaningful, for someone's future rather than just letting it sit there collecting interest until I died and left it to kids who didn't really need it. The next 2 weeks in Bangkok were like a dream. Niren and I spent every day together. She showed me temples and markets, took me to her school to meet her colleagues, introduced me to her friends as her special person from America. We held hands walking through the city. We kissed for the first time on a boat on the Chao Phraya River, and it felt like being young again, like the world was full of possibilities. Ploy started calling me David B.A., a Thai term of endearment combining my name with the word for grandfather. The three of us took a weekend trip to Phuket, stayed in a beach resort, and I have photos from that trip on my phone that I still can't bring myself to delete. Ploy building a sandcastle. Niren laughing at something I said over dinner. The three of us together on the beach, looking for all the world like a real family. I don't want you to leave, Niren said on my last night in Thailand. We were lying in her bed, we'd finally been intimate 2 nights before, and it had been gentle and sweet and everything I'd hoped for. These 3 weeks, David, they have been the happiest I've been since my husband died. You fit into our lives so perfectly. It's like you were always meant to be here. I don't want to leave either, I admitted. I keep thinking about selling my house, moving here. Would that be crazy? Her eyes lit up. Would you really consider that? David, to have you here permanently, to build a life together, but I would never ask you to leave your home, your children. My children have their own lives, I said. My home is just a building full of memories of someone who's gone. This feels like a future. You and Ploy, you feel like my future. We started making plans that night. I'd go back to Arizona, put my house on the market, settle my affairs, and move to Bangkok. We'd get a bigger apartment, maybe a house with a small garden. I'd help with Ploy's expenses, be a father figure she'd been missing. Niren and I would get married, not right away, but eventually, when it felt right. Before I continue, I want to pause here. If you're watching this and you're nodding along, thinking you'd never fall for something like this, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Because that's what I thought too. That's what everyone thinks until they're the one in the middle of it. Share this video. It might save someone's life savings. I flew back to Arizona in early June with a heart full of hope and a phone full of photos. I immediately contacted a realtor about listing the house. I started sorting through 40 years of accumulated belongings, deciding what to ship to Thailand and what to sell or donate. Sarah and Thomas were concerned, that's putting it mildly, but I assured them I knew what I was doing. I was in love. I'd found someone who made life worth living again. Nyrin and I video called twice a day, every day. She'd show me apartments she was looking at for us. Ploy would pop into frame to say hello, tell me about her day at school. It all felt so real, so solid. Then the requests started coming. First, it was Ploy's additional university expenses. Books, lab fees, housing deposit, another $15,000. Then Nyrin's mother, who lived upcountry, fell ill and needed surgery. $20,000 for the hospital bills. The school where Nyrin worked was cutting positions, and she needed money to bribe the administrator to keep her job. That's just how things worked in Thailand, she explained, this cultural difference I'd have to understand. $30,000. Each time, she was apologetic, ashamed, promised she'd pay me back once I moved there and we combined our finances. Each time, I sent the money without hesitation. What was the alternative? Let her mother die. Let Ploy's education be interrupted. Let Nyrin lose her job right before I arrived. These were emergencies, family crises, the kind of thing you handle when you're building a life with someone. By August, I'd sent over $170,000. My house sold for $420,000, less than I'd hoped, but the market was slow. I wired $100,000 to Nyrin to put a deposit on a house she'd found for us, a beautiful 3-bedroom place with a garden, in a good neighborhood near Ploy's university. David, this is really happening, she said on the video call, tears streaming down her face as she showed me the house listing. Our house. Our family home. I keep thinking I'm dreaming and I'll wake up and you'll be gone. I'm not going anywhere, I promised her. I'm coming home to you. I arrived in Bangkok in September with 2 suitcases and a bank account that had just under $150,000 left in it, my entire life savings. Everything I owned was in those bags or in that account. I'd burned my bridges, sold everything, said goodbye to my old life. I was all in. Nyrin picked me up from the airport with Ploy. They had a banner that said "Welcome home David B.A." and they both hugged me tight. Everything is ready, Nyrin said. The house is perfect. You're going to love it. We drove for over an hour outside Bangkok, into more rural areas than I'd expected. The house is in the suburbs, Nyrin explained. Quieter, more peaceful. Better for us to start our life together. The neighborhoods got progressively more rundown as we drove. I told myself it was just a different side of Thailand, that I was being judgmental with my American expectations. We pulled up to a house, but it wasn't the house from the listing. It was much smaller, much shabbier, on a dirt road in what looked like a very poor village. This is it? I asked, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. The other house, there was a problem with the paperwork, Nyrin said quickly. This was the best we could do with the deposit. But it's ours, David. Our home. Something cold settled in my stomach, but I pushed it away. So it wasn't the house in the pictures. We could make it work. We could make it better. Okay, I said. Let's see inside. The house was barely furnished. 2 bedrooms, a basic kitchen, a bathroom with questionable plumbing. Nyrin and Ploy showed me around nervously, and I tried to be positive, tried to hide my growing unease. Where's the furniture from your old apartment? I asked. We had to sell most of it to make the numbers work for this place, Nyrin said. But we can buy new things, make it ours. That night, lying on a thin mattress on the floor, listening to unfamiliar sounds outside, I called Sarah. Dad, how's the new place? She asked, and I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth. It's great, I lied. Really great. I'm happy. The next morning, Nyrin sat me down with a serious expression. David, I need to tell you something, and I'm so ashamed. The deposit for Ploy's university, they're saying there was a problem with the payment. They need the rest of the tuition now, all at once, or they'll give her spot to another student. It's $60,000. $60,000. I had $150 left total. That would leave me with 90,000, barely enough to live on, especially in a new country where I didn't speak the language or understand the systems. Niren, I don't know if I... Please, David. She was crying now, real desperate tears. Ploy's future depends on this. Everything we've worked for. You said we were family. Family helps each other. Ploy came out of her bedroom then, also crying. David B.A., please. I've worked so hard. This is my only chance. I sent the money. Of course I sent the money. What kind of monster would I be if I didn't? But after I'd transferred it, sitting in that shabby house in the middle of nowhere, I finally let myself admit that something was wrong. Very wrong. Over the next 2 weeks, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The requests kept coming: money for food, for utilities, for Niren's mother's additional medical care, for repairs to the house, for Ploy's books and supplies. Each amount was smaller than the last, 2,000 here, 3,000 there, but they were constant and relentless. I started asking questions. Where exactly was Ploy's university? Could I see the enrollment paperwork? Could we visit Niren's mother in the hospital? Every question was met with evasion, excuses, anger. You don't trust me? Niren would cry. After everything, after I opened my heart to you, you think I'm lying? I just want to understand. You want to control me. To control us. This is what men do, they give money and then they think they own you. But it wasn't about control. It was about the sick feeling in my gut that was getting stronger every day. It was about the way Ploy sometimes spoke to Niren and Thai and they'd both look at me with expressions I couldn't read. It was about the fact that I'd given up everything, spent nearly $300,000, and I was living in poverty worse than anything I'd experienced in my 70 years. The end came on a Tuesday morning. I woke up and Niren was already dressed, looking nervous. David, I need to go run errands. Stay here, rest. I'll be back this afternoon. I'll come with you, I said, getting up. No. Her voice was sharp. I mean, you don't need to. It's just boring errands. Stay here, relax. She left before I could argue. Ploy had already left for school, though I'd noticed she seemed to leave at random times and come back at random times, never following any consistent schedule. I was alone in the house. And for the first time since I'd arrived, I let myself really look around. I went into Ploy's room, feeling guilty for invading her privacy but unable to stop myself. The room was nearly empty, some clothes, a few books, but none of the typical teenage girl items. No computer for schoolwork. No university materials. No photos of friends. I opened her closet. Inside, I found bags from expensive stores, designer brands I recognized even if I didn't follow fashion. Shoes that cost thousands of dollars. A laptop that was top of the line. Where had all this come from if they were so desperately poor? My hands were shaking as I went into Niren's room. In a drawer, under some clothes, I found a folder. Inside were documents, rental agreements for multiple properties in Bangkok. Bank statements showing hundreds of thousands of dollars in deposits and withdrawals. And photos. Photos of Niren with other men, Western men, all of them middle-aged or older, all of them looking at her the way I probably looked at her. In some photos, Ploy was there too, playing the role of the daughter, the sympathetic teenager who needed help. I sat on the floor of her bedroom, holding those documents, and my entire reality shattered. Every conversation we'd had was a lie. Every tear she'd cried was performance. Every moment I thought we were building something real was just her following a script she'd perfected over years, probably decades, of running this same con on lonely men who were desperate enough to believe. Ploy wasn't her daughter. Or maybe she was her daughter, but they were partners in this, working together to identify marks and extract maximum money before the mark figured it out. The university applications, the sick mother, the job troubles, all fiction. Carefully crafted fiction designed to appeal to a certain type of man. The savior type. The father figure type. The lonely widower who wanted nothing more than to feel needed again. I was still sitting there when they came back. Niren and Ploy walked into the bedroom and found me on the floor, surrounded by their documents, their evidence, their truth. Niren's face went through several emotions in quick succession: surprise, fear, anger, and finally something cold and calculating. "David," she started, but I held up my hand. "Don't," I said. "Don't say another word. I want the truth. All of it. How much of this was real?" She looked at Ploy, then back at me. When she spoke, her voice was different, harder, without the soft sweetness I'd fallen in love with. "None of it," she said simply. "It was business." "Business?" I laughed, but it came out as more of a sob. "I gave you almost $400,000. I sold my house. I left my family. I spent 3 months thinking I'd found someone to spend the rest of my life with. And we spent 3 months working," she said, with no apology in her voice. "This is what we do, David. We're good at it. You're not even the biggest one this year." Ploy was standing in the doorway, no longer the sweet, shy teenager. She was checking her phone, looking bored. "Are we done here?" she asked Niren in English. "I have plans tonight." "Who are you?" I asked, looking between them. "Who are you really?" Niren shrugged. "We're survivors. In Thailand, women like us, we do what we have to do. Rich foreign men come here looking for someone to save, someone to make them feel important. We give you exactly what you're looking for. It's a transaction." "I loved you," I said, and my voice broke on the words. "No, you didn't," she said, and there was almost pity in her eyes. "You love the idea of me. You love not being alone. You love feeling like a hero. We just facilitated that. Gave you what you wanted. I want my money back." She laughed. "It's gone, David. Spent, invested, moved around. You'll never see it again. And if you go to the police, I'll tell them you were trying to buy Ploy from me. That you wanted to marry her, that you paid me to let you. Who do you think they'll believe? A Thai woman protecting her daughter from a foreign predator? Or a bitter old man who got played?" I left that house with my 2 suitcases and less than $20,000 in my bank account. I spent that night in a cheap hostel in Bangkok, lying on a bunk bed surrounded by backpackers half a century younger than me, trying to figure out how I was going to survive this. I called Sarah from the airport when I finally scraped together enough for a flight home. "Dad," she answered, immediately concerned. "What's wrong? You sound—" "I need help," I said, and then I told her everything. Every stupid, humiliating detail. She didn't say "I told you so," which I was grateful for. She just cried with me, for me, and helped me figure out what to do next. I filed a police report in Bangkok before I left, but the officer barely took notes. "This happens all the time," he said wearily. "Thai woman, foreign man, romance scam. You're not getting your money back." When I got back to Arizona, I had nothing. No house, no savings, no dignity. Sarah helped me find this apartment, helped me furnish it with the basics. Thomas set up a small monthly stipend from his own money so I could eat, pay rent. My children are taking care of me now, the way I used to take care of them, and the role reversal is humiliating beyond words. I'm 73 years old. I should be spending my retirement traveling, spoiling my grandchildren, living comfortably on the savings Catherine and I worked decades to build. Instead, I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment with borrowed furniture, living on my children's charity, trying to figure out how I'll survive the next decade or 2 on nothing. But here's what haunts me most: I still think about her sometimes. I still remember those first few weeks, before I flew to Thailand, when the conversations felt real and the connection felt genuine. I still remember lying on that beach in Phuket with Niren and Ploy, feeling like I'd finally found my place in the world again. And some broken part of me still wonders if any of that was real. If she felt anything at all, even for a moment. If Ploy ever actually liked me, or if every smile was calculated. I know the answer. I know it was all fake, all performance, all business. But loneliness does something to your brain. It makes you want to believe in anything that promises to end the ache. And even now, knowing everything I know, if Niren sent me a message tomorrow saying she was sorry, saying some of it was real, saying she wanted to try again, I don't know if I'd be strong enough to delete it. That's the real horror of what happened to me. Not just that I lost everything, but that I'm still vulnerable to the same manipulation. I'm still that desperate, still that lonely, still that willing to believe in second chances that don't exist. I'm telling you this story because if you're watching this, you probably have someone in your life who's lonely. A parent, a grandparent, a friend. And you need to understand that loneliness isn't just sad, it's dangerous. It makes smart people stupid. It makes careful people reckless. It makes someone like me, a man who spent 40 years as an educator, who taught critical thinking and warned students about making impulsive decisions, walk straight into a trap so obvious that everyone else could see it. Check on your lonely people. Not just a phone call on their birthday, but really check on them. Make sure they're not spending hours alone with nothing but their thoughts and their fears. Make sure they're not vulnerable to someone like Niren, someone who's perfected the art of identifying and exploiting emotional need. And if you're the lonely person, if you're the one getting messages from beautiful strangers who seem to understand you perfectly, who seem to want exactly what you want, who make you feel special and seen and necessary, please be more skeptical than I was. Ask yourself why someone would be interested in you. Not in a self-deprecating way, but in a logical way. What are they getting from this? Why you, specifically? Why now? If someone truly loves you, they won't need constant financial help. They won't have endless emergencies. They won't isolate you from your family or rush you into life-changing decisions. Real love is patient. Real love doesn't cost $400,000. I lost everything because I was too proud to admit I was being scammed, too lonely to walk away from something that felt good even when I knew it was wrong, too desperate for connection to protect myself. I chose to believe in a fantasy because the alternative, accepting that I might be alone for whatever years I have left, was too painful to contemplate. But you know what? I am alone now. More alone than I was before, because now I'm alone and poor and humiliated. I'm alone and I've lost my independence, my dignity, my ability to help my grandchildren or leave my children an inheritance. I'm alone in a way that's so much worse than the loneliness I started with. If I could go back and talk to myself 3 years ago, when that first message from Niren appeared on my screen, I'd tell myself to delete it. I'd tell myself that the loneliness wouldn't kill me, but the cure I was reaching for would destroy everything I'd built. I'd tell myself that Catherine's death was a tragedy, but what I was about to do to myself was worse. But I can't go back. I can only sit here in this small apartment, living on my children's generosity, and warn others not to make the same mistake. I can only hope that someone watching this will recognize themselves in my story and step back from the edge before they jump. Niren is probably in Bangkok right now, talking to another lonely man, telling him he's special, making him feel seen. Ploy is probably playing the role of the sweet daughter who needs help with university. They're probably running the exact same script on someone else, and it's probably working, because the script is good. It's so good that even knowing it's fake, part of me still wishes it had been real. That's the price of loneliness. That's what it costs when you let yourself get so desperate for connection that you'll ignore every warning sign, every red flag, every piece of evidence that contradicts the story you want to believe. I paid that price. $400,000. My home. My security. My dignity. My future. Please don't make the same trade. Please be smarter than I was. Please understand that being alone is hard, but it's survivable. What I did to myself, what Niren and Ploy did to me, that's not survivable. Not really. I'm still breathing, still existing, but the person I was before, the man who had self-respect and independence and hope for the future, he's gone. Niren killed him just as surely as cancer killed Catherine. The only difference is, I helped her do it. Every time I sent money, every time I ignored my doubts, every time I chose to believe instead of question, I was participating in my own destruction. Don't do what I did. Don't be who I was. The cost is too high, and you don't get a refund. I'm David Morrison. I'm 73 years old. And I destroyed my own life because I couldn't stand to be alone. Learn from me. Please. Learn from me.